Hello, everybody, and I'd like to welcome all mentees, mentors, WLC members, and future WLP community members to the Women's Launchpad virtual celebration, Amazing Women at Brown and Beyond. We are so happy to have you here with us. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Johanna Hussey. I am the Assistant Director of Engagement Programs in the Office of Alumni Relations, and I am the manager of the Women's Launchpad. And I'm going to start by just sharing a little history about the Women's Launchpad. So WLP is 13 years old, and we have more than 2,500 students and alumni who have engaged as program participants. The program is made possible by the incredible alumni dedicating time to mentoring students and students taking the initiative to learn from their mentors. We offer a series of on-campus events designed to be informative to students' personal development and unique ways to engage alumni with students and the university. This evening, we are delighted to celebrate our mentees who have been creating social impact in the world. Volunteerism is something we greatly value with this program, and we are proud to highlight the achievements of our student panelists, but also all of our mentees in the 2019-2020 program. As part of the Women's Launchpad Service Project this year, we have been recognizing the amazing work of Women at Brown by offering an opportunity for mentees to share their acts of service, such as volunteer work or extracurriculars that have social impact. Mentees' stories have been shared throughout the month in our social media outlets, and if you saw in the attachments for the invite for this webinar, you should have seen the list of all of the bios for our panelists, as well as the list of all the students that we are highlighting through our service project. So please join me in celebrating all that our mentees have been doing to generate social impact on campus and beyond. So it is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, my friend, a Brown alumna and a long-term mentor, Carole Penney. So our moderator, Carole has been a mentor in the Launchpad for 6 years. She is a certified professional coach. She earned a BA in Education Studies from Brown and certifications in nonprofit management and leadership from Tufts University and professional coaching from the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. She worked for over 10 years in nonprofit management in Providence, and she has devoted her business to advancing leadership and career development for mission-driven leaders. As the founder of Penney Leadership, LLC, Carole coaches clients to navigate their leadership and career journeys with purpose and resilience. She is a seasoned speaker and a writer on topics related to leadership and career development. She has such a passion that I have witnessed firsthand for sharing new perspectives and tools to help others with their work. So we are so excited to have you, Carole, to moderate this panel, and we thank you so much. I hope you'll kick us off.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction, Johanna. I'm so excited to be here and to be celebrating with all of you this afternoon. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to recognize all of you who have joined together for this celebration. This is all about celebrating the Launchpad program and the people who make it great, our mentees, our mentors, and the incoming participants who are joining us tonight as well. So for those of you who are mentors, we want to say thank you so much for serving the Brown community with your membership in this program. To the mentees from this program year, we hope you'll see that we're celebrating you tonight, and hopefully we have a sense of being together even as we are far apart. We want to honor the impact that you've made at Brown, and we are so excited for you all to continue to amaze us with the innovative and brilliant ways that you represent women at Brown. And then for those of you who are joining us tonight who are interested in joining either as a mentee or a mentor, we hope that you'll use this event as an opportunity to hear about the program, hear from people who have participated, and consider joining us in September. The applications will be going out soon, and because you registered for this event, you'll definitely be getting an email invitation. So as we move through the program tonight, I ask that you all keep this statement in mind. Let your life mean something, become an inspiration to others so that they may try to do more and to become more than they are today. That's certainly been my experience as a mentor in this program, and I am always, I feel, more inspired by my mentee than what I bring to the table. So we all feel like we're really winning by being a part of this. I also just want to add a thank you to Johanna and her amazing intern team. They do so much to make this program possible and have built it out, created so many new facets and valuable pieces of the program over the years. And I also want to thank all the committee members of Women's Launchpad who work behind the scenes to make this meaningful program really possible. So with that, let's kick off our panel, which really exemplifies the role of student leaders who are making an impact at Brown and beyond. I am just floored by all of these women and the work that they've been doing and the leadership that they have taken on in their time at Brown, and I can't wait for them all to share their stories with you. So we're going to start by asking each panelist to introduce herself. So each of you, I'd love for you to tell us who you are and what your leadership roles are, how you came to be a leader, and what you're really proud of achieving. So we're going to start with Natalie Feinstein. So Natalie, will you kick us off?
Yes. Hello. Hi. I'm Natalie. Nice to see all of you here. I am a senior studying chemistry from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I've served as a coordinator for the Brown Refugee Youth Tutoring and Enrichment organization, BRYTE, which is a student-run organization in which students tutor refugee youth in Providence. I'm also a peer entrepreneur in residence at the Nelson Center for Entrepreneurship, where I meet with students interested in learning more about entrepreneurship opportunities and resources here on campus. And then I also serve as a helpline volunteer at DayOne. And DayOne is a Rhode Island organization that offers treatment, intervention, education, advocacy services related to domestic violence and sexual assault. And yeah, I guess I can let the other panelists introduce themselves then.
Yeah, Natalie, before we move on,
Sure.
What is it that you're really proud of achieving through those leadership opportunities?
Well, when I think of a proudest moment, I think of meeting with seniors about to graduate when I was a BRYTE coordinator last spring, because so many of the seniors that I got to sit down with, they had been tutoring in their same family since their very first semester and were incredibly close with both their tutee and that family. And just seeing how much the relationships that had been built over the years and getting to be part of that was a really incredible leadership experience.
Awesome. That sounds so rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you, Natalie. We're going to move over to Melissa now. Melissa, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So I'm Melissa. I'm a senior studying BEO, Business Entrepreneurship and Organizations. I'm originally from Irvine, California. And on campus, I'm really involved with the Undergraduate Council of Students, which is student government, and also HOPE, which stands for Housing Opportunities for People Everywhere. And we work a lot with issues relating to poverty and homelessness in Providence and the greater Rhode Island community. In terms of my proudest moment as a leader, I think that there are a lot of different things that I'm really proud of, and there's so much value in all of the intangible impact, but some of the proudest moments really come from seeing a lot of tangible impact that we get to create through these student organizations and involvements that we're involved in. So for example, with UCS, I was able to create a airport shuttle that gets students to the airport for free, and institutionalize that for the next few years to come. We're also able to get water bottle fillers, hydration stations installed in 10 different dorms. So that's a lot of from student advocacy and student push. And then for Hope, some of the things that I'm really proud of are we are actually currently the largest nighttime provider of street outreach in Rhode Island, and that's grown quite a bit since my freshman year when we were just 15 people. Now we have over 400 plus students on our team. So it's really seeing so much impact that Brown students to have is when I have my proudest moments.
Yeah, you should be proud of all that. That's incredible progress and resources that you're opening up to not just Brown students, but the city as well. Thanks, Melissa. Kaitlyn, you're up next.
Yes, hi. I'm Kaitlyn. I'm a senior studying biology on the immunobiology track and contemplative studies. And I'm from Needham, Massachusetts, so not too far from Providence. I have worked with Clínica Esperanza since starting at Brown my freshman year, and I've been an intake volunteer and data analyst, and basically the mission of Clínica is to offer medical care to uninsured Rhode Islanders, focusing a lot on prevention and health maintenance for patients of diverse culturally and linguistically different backgrounds. And I've also been a development coordinator and counselor at Camp Kesem. Camp Kesem at Brown is a student-run chapter that is dedicated to create a truly magical community for children whose parents have or had cancer. So we work on a week-long free summer camp, and this allows the children to really share their experiences, but not be defined by their experiences by any means. And I definitely think that one of my proudest moments, there's been several, but I think a huge theme that I've seen through interacting with these different people from vulnerable and diverse backgrounds beyond Brown. One thing that I've seen time and time again is empowerment. For example, through Camp Kesem, we have a specific time during camp where the campers and counselors can share anything that they want, things that range from cancer experiences to a lot of emotional trauma or just appreciation for one another. And I think it's a really beautiful space. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. Thank you, Kaitlyn. Savannah, let's hear from you.
All right. Hi, everyone. I just want to quickly say thank you to everyone in the audience for being here. I guess I'm speaking for all of us. We're all really honored to be on this panel today. So I'm Savannah Lewis. I'm a junior studying cell and molecular biology. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I'm involved with quite a lot at Brown. I've been in an organization called Students for Saving Mothers since my first year. And it's been really just an amazing opportunity to advance through the leadership platform there. We raise funds and awareness for international maternal mortality. And so over the course of the several years I've been there, we've raised thousands of dollars. And we even won the SAO Community Impact Award last year, which was just fantastic. I'm also a member of a student peer education program called SHAG. Stands for Sexual Health Awareness Group. It's a very cheeky acronym, but the whole goal behind that is to provide peer education in a less formal but still very effective way to encourage healthy behavior without any of the kind of traditional barriers that a physician or making that appointment would cause for people. And then I'm also really proud of the fact that I've been an undergraduate TA. I've now TA'd twice. I'm currently the head TA for Bio 1550, and with my journey at Brown being what it was, it's really nice to finally be in that position where I can be a role model for women and people of color that are my students. yeah, so going off of that, one of my proudest moments in all of this experience is even just this past fall, having some of my own female students tell me that they really want to be a TA because, you know, it just seems like the world opens up for them when you see someone that looks like you and resembles you and has those same lived circumstances doing something that you want to do. So I'm just really glad I can be there for them too.
That's awesome. Thank you, Savannah. And Isabella, let's bring it on home for us.
Hey there, thanks for the kind introduction. I'm Isabella. I'm a senior concentrating in public policy. I'm a former president of Fashion at Brown, and I also serve on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for Kappa Alpha Theta. When I think back about my proudest moment at Brown, it would probably be, in general, teaching others more about technology and encouraging them to enter the tech industry. More specifically, at Fashion at Brown, I helped start our social media, website strategy, graphic design, and digital marketing teams, which are still up and running today. So that's been really, really awesome to see.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, it's so great to have you all here, and I'm really excited to have a conversation with you all about female leadership in particular at Brown and beyond. So we have a bunch of questions to ask you, and I want to start by asking Savannah, how do you see female leaders creating change at Brown today and for the future?
It's a really great question. And I'm really lucky to sort of be in an environment where there's a lot of really ambitious women around me at all points. But, you know, speaking from my STEM experience, a lot of us are becoming pioneers into spaces that were never really created for people like us in mind. And so, you know, it's still very white and male dominated in a lot of ways, but all of those women that I'm surrounded by, you know, have stopped taking no for an answer and have, you know, really let their accolades and their resumes speak for themselves. So it's a very inspiring environment, and I'm constantly being motivated by all of the fantastic women around me. All of the TAs for Bio 1550 are currently women, and, you know, we're getting it done. We've had really, really great exam scores and have really just been providing great services for our students. So, yeah.
Awesome. You really talk a lot about modeling the kind of leadership, not only that you want for yourself, but you want to pass on to the next generation of students. Thanks, Savannah. This next question I'm going to ask, so I want you to think about, in what ways does the Brown academic and social setting really foster students to become leaders? And I'd love to start with you, Melissa, to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the most incredible things about Brown is really the social setting. And whenever I reference my Brown experience, I always talk about how much I love it because of the people that are there. So I think how Brown has really fostered students to become leaders is through all of the support systems that are in place to help students succeed. And whenever I think about what has characterized my student experience, it's really the amount of student advocacy and the impact that student advocacy has. So for example, through my work in UCS and just looking at the past student impact that has been able to occur, student advocacy with examples like open curriculum or the establishment of identity centers or paying any student laborers on our campus, all of this work was created through student advocacy and student labor. So whenever I look around and I see all of my amazings accomplishing all these different things, advocating for grading policy changes during coronavirus, or, you know, just all of the ways that we mobilize as a community in response to a pandemic situation, which is the one we're in right now. All of these really help, I think, foster a lot of leadership and resilience and really strong leaders that really do create amazing impact in our community.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Kaitlyn, I'm curious, do you have thoughts on what is it about the Brown academic and social setting that fosters student leaders?
Yeah, jumping off of what Melissa said, I think through leadership since like coming to Brown And starting as a freshman, I think one thing about Brown I was really impressed by was the different avenues of advising and support networks, from like tutoring, professors, TAs to Career Lab and Mickle-Johns, the list goes on. And I think there are so many aspects for support and guidance that are here specifically to support Brown students' ideas and passions. For example, like you can become a leader both inside the academic classroom and outside through like Engaged Scholars program that integrates both. And I think the social setting is extremely collaborative and makes the resources available solely for the students. And they're designed so that Brown students can, once again, like pursue their passions and become these agents of change.
Yeah, that's so beautifully put. I feel that really resonates with me, even from my experience at Brown many years ago, that there are so many resources on campus. And one of the things that I really walked away with as a skill was being resourceful. So all those resources are there, but you often have to seek them out, you know, to ask for what you need, to seek guidance and support. And that has been a life skill for me. Always being ready. As soon as I face a challenge, I'm like, what are my resources? Because I learned that at Brown as I was navigating the open curriculum. And so I think that's something that you all are taking with you as well. And it really is a true skill that matters in the world, whether it's a personal challenge, whether it's a work challenge, to really have that resourcefulness to ask for help and guidance when you need it. So thanks for that, Kaitlyn. Savannah, do you have thoughts on this question?
Yeah, sort of just to close it off and really share some anecdotes about what I've experienced about the social setting at Brown. Every day I'm with my roommates, my friends, and my peers and my students. I'm reminded that this really is a world-class environment. Everyone is so brilliant and so passionate about such a wide array of things. Even within my concentration, there's no two people that you'll talk to that are doing the exact same thing. And so when we're in more low pressure settings like the dining halls or restaurants or even at home, we're still sharing those passions with each other. And I'm just, absolutely, astounded by what my peers are interested in. And it just inspires me more and more to, have, besides even like the own personal fulfillment of, getting out there and making change on campus and change in the world, just to be able to participate in that conversation. It's a really, really inspiring environment.
You're bringing me back and making me miss it. Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask too, as we're talking about leadership, and this is for Natalie and Isabella, who are the leaders that you most admire, either on or off campus? Let's start with Natalie.
Sure. So I've admired for a long time Rim Hale, who I worked with on BRYTE leadership. However, I've seen a lot of sides to Rim's leadership because she was my own coordinator when I was a tutor my first year, and she's led BRYTE's affiliate summer camp. And she's the first BRYTE fellow, so this new position for recent grads to work full-time on BRYTE. And throughout all these different sides to her leadership, she's always been so devoted and just gets things done in a way where in a big student organization, nonprofit, it's easy to have a lot of great ideas, but not really make progress on them. But Rim is someone who always makes progress on her ideas, and I really especially admire her quiet leadership presence. It's really special. She won't say the most in a meeting, but when there's a tricky situation, she's the one we all turn to.
That's awesome. That really reminds us that there are all different ways to be a leader. You don't have to be the charismatic person who's in the front of the room waving your arms and legs and getting everybody psyched up, but there's a quiet leadership as well. And it sounds like she was a really powerful example for you. Isabella, how about you? Who do you admire as a leader?
Yeah, so the first person that comes to mind for me is Professor Deborah Hurley. She is a professor at Brown in the computer science department. And she has this amazing way of making her courses available to students in any concentration or any study. So I have the honor of being in one of her courses this semester, which has been such a joy, but I have never taken a CS class before. And I think what she has shown is that you don't need a formal computer science background to be involved in tech. And I honestly haven't seen that many women in the tech industry and in my own community and in the world that I've grown up in so far. And so she has really inspired me to sort of enter this male-dominated field.
Very cool. That's what the open curriculum is all about, right? Giving you a chance to try out things that you wouldn't have thought about otherwise. And it sounds like that's really making a path for you for your steps beyond Brown, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
great. So as you all introduced yourselves and you were talking about all the things that you are involved with, it's sort of incredible to hear. And so how is it that you go about managing your social interests and the demands of academics? How do you balance that in your time at Brown? Melissa, I want to start with you for this question.
Yeah, so I think as we can witness from everyone doing all these amazing things on this panel, everyone at Brown is so uniquely passionate about what they do and doing so much. It can be difficult managing social interests and a demanding academic workload, but I think one of the incredible things about Brown are there, like people have said before, there are a lot of support systems in place. For me personally, I found that with my concentration BO, I've had a lot of flexibility and the open curriculum in general with taking courses I genuinely enjoy. So that's one of my biggest piece of advice is also just being really passionate for the work that you're doing. I think it's really what everyone has said on the panel so far, how passionate everyone is about the work that they're doing. And I think that just find balance and doing the things that you really, the best way to manage and balance those. I think there are also, through the work I've seen, there are a lot of advocacy solutions, such as structural solutions that we found students pushing for, like off-campus federal work study and all these things that are put into place through students' feedback and whatnot. And it's really just really helpful in terms of managing and balancing a demanding academic social workload.
Sounds like your passion is your fuel and it just doesn't turn off. Natalie, how about you? How do you have a sense of balance as you're navigating all this?
Yeah, so I think Melissa put it really well. One thing I'll add is it's always been a learning trend. So I definitely have gotten better over the semesters, but in light of the new circumstances due to COVID-19, there's new challenges about balancing social interests and academic loads. But one thing that I've learned over the years is to take an active mindset in being in the moment. So whether that is doing something social and actively not worrying and thinking about the work that I should be doing, and then by this other side of the coin, when I'm doing work, not thinking about the social activities I'm missing out on, because the work will get done, and to just sort of trust yourself that that'll happen and allow yourself to enjoy your time.
Well, that's an incredible life skill that you're taking with you. I bet there's plenty of mentees and mentors alike who would like to cultivate some of that, sort of compartmentalizing the guilt so that you can just really be in the thing that you're doing, so you really fully progress, or you're fully relaxing and not split between two places. That's so wise. Savannah, how about you? How has it been for you to balance all this?
So I've found that over my time at Brown so far, that I cannot stop being busy. I really like being involved in all of the activities that I'm doing. And, naturally when you have, ambitions to do well in your concentration, and then I for example, I'm looking at grad school, it can be really hard to take a time aside to just breathe and, remind yourself like why you're so busy. But what's helped me a lot is I've found ways to rely on the communities that I've built within those social interests. For example, the SHAG cohort that we welcomed in this year and trained, and now they're fully ready peer educators. They've just been an outstanding addition to our community. And when I go to those meetings and I'm surrounded by all these people in different concentrations, it's such a breath of fresh air to just be able to laugh and be silly and just focus on our higher motivations other than just being a student. And then also, I really enjoy celebrating the small successes that I find along the way. And this is especially relevant with the TA work that I do. Like a lot of the work can go unrecognized when you're just grading and making section slides that for review, even if your students don't want to be there because it's mandatory. But those moments where a student reaches out to you for help, and you clarify with them and really get them to understand. That's really what motivates me. And it's just, I love to teach, and those moments are really just magical.
I love how you put that. You said something, I think it was aligning with our higher purpose and not just doing the work. And I hope that that's something that you take with you too as you transition to life after Brown. Yes, you'll have your work, but you all will be doing awesome, amazing things outside of work as well. And so finding all those ways to align with that higher purpose so that really fuels you in your life and allows you to have the kind of impact that you all are very interested in having. So thanks, Savannah. That was really great. I know that a few of you are seniors who are preparing to graduate. And so you've been making this mark at Brown, but it's time to kind of pass the torch on to the next generation. And I'm curious about how you're doing that. How are you empowering the next generation to step up into leadership? Kaitlyn, I'm going to start with you for this one.
Yeah, I think that's tricky, but before leaving Brown, through my different leadership roles on campus organizations and also in other extracurriculars, I've been trying to train and guide other undergraduates to take on the roles and responsibilities before I leave. And if anything, I think the campus efforts of the students will continue and also to grow even more. And I think leadership is definitely something that's beyond the individual, requiring a great amount of dedication and passion. And I think it's important to follow one's passions and just see where it takes you. And naturally, the leadership role will you'll naturally fall into that leadership role. And I also think that it's important to also question the status quo and brainstorm how to fix any problems and be innovative. If things are fine now, how can they be better? In what ways can we make change to make things better? And as everything's rapidly changing, especially now, it's important to adapt and once again use the opportunities and resources that you have to make that change that is needed.
Yeah, that's such a great perspective to be, to think of leadership beyond your individual self, and to also to be so open to change and improvement. Oftentimes as leaders, we can get a little attached to the ways that we've come up with or what we know has worked. And so you have to kind of have a lighter touch with that as new students come through and new leadership comes through. And so that's such great practice for leadership beyond in your whole life. Natalie, how are you thinking about empowering the next generation of leaders?
I would say I've been really excited to work with students in my role as a peer entrepreneur in residence at the Nelson Center. And this is because it's been extremely exciting to connect students to resources on campus for them to develop maybe their own venture ideas or to learn more about entrepreneurship, or even just talk to someone who can give them information they're looking for. And I think especially in the entrepreneurship community, it's so much about giving off energy and then getting the energy people bring with their ideas. And so connecting people to resources has been really wonderful, and I'm excited to see and follow specific people's ventures going forward.
That's so neat. What an awesome resource that is newer at Brown than my time there. Melissa, how about you? How do you think about empowering the next generation of leaders at Brown?
Definitely. I think hopping off of what Kaitlyn said, a lot of the work that I do in student government is thinking about how to change the status quo and how to be an agent of change. And just this year, we've been able to establish a new position in student government, creating equity chair to further echo all of the amazing diverse and inclusion equity work that's been done on campus. Another thing that we've been able to do is establish a community engagement council for faculty admin and to evaluate the impact that Brown has on the province community. So I think just a lot of ways to formalize and institute the change that you want to see in the Brown community. I think in addition to that, also echoing what Kaitlyn said, while there are a lot of ways to or formalize impact, I think through seeing a lot of leaders and female leaders take positions of leader and all the work that they're doing speaks even more just through the actions alone to empowering future generations. I know that was definitely the case for me, getting a lot of inspiration just from looking around and seeing the work that my and peer leaders were doing.
Yeah, so you and Savannah have also both spoken to being examples of the leadership and inspiring others through that. And then also you're talking about being responsive in terms of the new needs that are coming through and the new opportunities to create, sort of build out the organizations to respond to that. So thanks for those thoughts, Melissa. Isabella, I know you're a senior as well. Would you like to weigh in on this question and how you're thinking about empowering the next generation?
Absolutely. So one of the things I loved most about Fashion at Brown was that I felt like we were constantly prepping each other to be leaders. So by my junior year, we had freshmen actually running some of the teams and underclassmen really in leadership roles because we didn't look at things on a seniority basis to kind of fill roles. We kind of just thought, who has the time, who has the space right now to do this, who has the expertise, and in conjunction with inviting everyone to e-board meetings. Anyone who had joined the club 3 days prior or had been on it for years was welcome to join and kind of weigh in their opinions and their voice. So I think that, fostering this very inclusive leadership community through the club, I think will leave the next generation, very prepared to do well.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true to my experience at Brown too, where because of the open curriculum, because of the passion of everyone, seniors and freshmen are, in classes together, in clubs together. And so it's really not this class structure in terms of the leaders or the seniors, but distributing that out depending on people's strengths and their capacity. It's great that you've gotten practice with thinking through that and really leveraging the strengths of the people on the team, which is what leadership is all about. So thanks for that, Isabella. I'm going to circle back sort of to something that Savannah brought up, which is this sort of higher sense of purpose. And I want to ask a few of you about how does the social impact that you're creating provide meaning in your life? And so actually I'm going to, Isabella, let's just pick up with you. How does your social impact bring you a sense of meaning?
Yeah, so at Fashion at Brown, we wanted to increase engagement with the Brown community. So one thing we did was we worked on making annual photo shoots in collaboration with other clubs on campus, and specifically with clubs that had a social cause or a social purpose. So my favorite collaboration was probably a sustainable clothing shoot. And it actually taught me and has left me still today thinking about how I can be a more sustainable shopper and really just a greener consumer, whether I am purchasing clothing items or food or whatever it is it may be. It really did make me think about how I can be a greener consumer.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Kaitlyn, how about you? How do you think about your social impact and how it provides meaning in your life?
Yeah, I think for me, social impact is something that has really driven me to do what I've done in my time here at Brown, and I think it's a great way to create create support and care in others' lives, and I find to be extremely rewarding. Through my experiences at Camp Kesem, it takes many people, countless hours, and a lot of time to be able to fundraise for our week of camp, and also continue to maintain the relationships between the campers and counselors, but ultimately seeing the smiles on the campers' faces and being able to bring together such a tight-knit and supportive community for all the laughs and memories is worth all of the hard work. And I'm especially in awe of the children that I've been able to interact with who experience very grown-up challenges at such young ages.
Thanks, Kaitlyn. Natalie, how about you?
Yeah, so I have for a while been interested in maybe working in the space of sexual assault prevention and reduction, but I never really had done anything active in that space. And so getting involved with DayOne and getting to work directly with survivors has actually convinced me that it is indeed the work I want to pursue as my life's work. And just being able to go through a really intense training and sort of ground myself in information that I need has really just has made it so that I know that I want to continue learning these things and working with survivors.
So it's a win-win opportunity for you to kind of try this on and gain experience, see what the work is all about, and also to be of service and really do meaningful work that has a social impact. Thanks, Natalie. Melissa, how about you? How do you think about social impact and the meaning that it has in your life?
Definitely. I think I really want to echo the fact that the social impact that I've been able to see at Brown has really impacted my life. I think, for example, before I did any work with Hope, I never really thought about the impact that the actions Brown has on the greater Providence community. For example, one of the conflicting things that I work on is with the undergraduate council students, we like to advocate for student voices. So a lot of that is, increasing the amount of students that get to live off campus and reducing financial burdens. But at the same time, with Hope, balancing the fact that when students live off campus, a lot of times that drives up rent prices, puts pressure on the housing market, and further aggravates the homelessness issue at in Providence. And so really seeing how different social impacts have ripple effects and create a lot of different unforeseen circumstances that I never really thought about before. And so now whenever I think about, every action or a decision that I'm making, all of the out of big picture things that may as a result. So just really thinking through, that's something that I've carried forward when I'm thinking about the next time I'm going to take my life decisions. So it's really rewarding experience.
And I'm so glad that you have that broader perspective, and I have no doubt that you're going to be in many leadership roles and be able to exercise that and be a really ethical and thoughtful leader in that way. So a couple of you, when you were introducing yourselves, you talked about your involvement in diversity and inclusion initiatives at Brown, Savannah and Isabella. So I'm curious to ask you more about that, because diversity and inclusion is something that a lot of people are turning their attention to in corporations, in organizations, and really thinking about how that needs to be interwoven into everything that we do. And so I know that you both believe in the importance of diversity and inclusion work. And so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how you are creating inclusive spaces with your leadership. And I'll start with Savannah.
Yeah, of course. So just in general, when someone is beginning to embark on a career path and follow, the ambitions that they hold dear, seeing truly is believing. If you see people around you in positions that you'd like to hold one day that look like you and have those shared lived experiences, that sort of sends a nonverbal message to you that, this is possible for me as well. And unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of experiences like that at Brown. Over the course of, I'm a junior now, over the course of progressing through my concentration within the biology and chemistry department, I've had 2 female professors and no professors of color, which is sad. But so the role modeling has to start somewhere, and it's really great to begin to sort of see that in this up and coming generation of graduate students. They're becoming more and more female and more people of color. But so I feel like me holding a position as both a peer educator and a teaching assistant for these fields, especially in STEM, that have really been, locked to one race and one gender. Like I've been told in the past, it's really great to just have that visual presence on top of doing the good work that these students need. So, it's got to start somewhere, and I'm really glad to, be pioneering that. But it's good to start seeing the change start with this young generation.
Great. Yeah, pioneering, that was exactly the word that I was thinking of. Isabella, what's your take on this, how you're creating inclusive spaces through your leadership?
Yeah, definitely. In Kappa Alpha Theta, we really strive to hear more voices. So in our committee meetings, we try to create settings where we can ensure that our members are comfortable coming forward with honestly whatever it is that's on their mind. We talk about matters regarding religion, income, race, sexual identity, you name it. And, even as a leader in that position, I've been able to learn so much from these meetings and really been exposed to so many new issues and conflicts and stories that I feel like I would have never learned otherwise.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to tie this leadership thread back in with the Women's Launchpad specifically, because I want to ask a few of you about how Women's Launchpad, the program, has impacted your leadership. Kaitlyn, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think women's leadership provided a great network of support. And at first I started off only communicating with just my mentor. And then I realized that women's leadership is a whole host of and network of people who are waiting for you to connect with them and talk to them. And I find that all of the women are extremely inspiring and empowering, and it's really great to hear of other women's stories and all of their accomplishments. So I think that inspiration and empowerment is definitely something.
Yeah, it is a whole network, and it's so neat because it's available to mentees and mentors alike. Some of the most rewarding moments of my involvement in the program have actually come from meetings that were not with my mentee, that were other mentees that saw me in the directory and reached out to talk about my career path or some kind of a common thread that they wanted to explore. And those have been fantastic conversations. And so thank you for reminding us that it's so much broader than just the mentor-mentee relationship. Melissa, how about for you? How has Women's Launchpad impacted your leadership?
Definitely, yeah. Echoing what everyone else said, it's been so incredible being a part of it. Just in terms of my mentor herself, she works at the intersection of environmental sustainability and business, which is exactly what I want to do, and is not necessarily the biggest field currently. And like Savannah said, seeing really is believing. So getting to see the things that she gets to do in her job position, getting to talk with her about what experiences led her to the job that she has right now. And in addition to that, also access to such an amazing group of and a network of strong female leaders on our campus. I know personally when I went to my cohort and had my accountability partner, all of the conversations we have and getting to learn more about all of the unique and amazing things that everyone else is doing on campus has just really been incredible. And learning by their example, I know that I've implemented a lot of the things that I've talked with other people about into my own personal leadership style. So definitely a lot of really positive impact from being a part of Women's Launchpad.
That's great. I love it when it works out where you really jive with the interests of your mentor and the mentee. So it's great that your mentor was a positive role model for you in specifically the thing you wanted to go into. Having been a mentor in this program for 6 years, actually some of the greatest mentor-mentee relationships that I've been a part of were completely opposite in terms of our experience. So last year, my mentee, I met her. She was a bioengineering major, and she was an athlete, and she's on the call today, actually. And I stayed away from science classes, never visited the gym in my time at Brown, so it was just kind of hilarious when we got together. I was like, wow, we have so much in common. But really, when it came down to it, we had such fruitful conversations about life after Brown and what it means to be a working woman, and negotiation and life planning and all sorts of things. And so whether your mentor-mentee relationship matches up in a career field or whether it's something completely different, I found that there can be such richness in those relationships. Let's see. Isabella, I want to ask you too. How has Women's Launchpad impacted your leadership?
Yeah, so I think Women's Launchpad has definitely taught me that as a leader, you should try to make yourself as available as possible. My mentor was super available to me and really helped me actually get the job that I'll be starting once I graduate. So I think that in terms of leadership style, the biggest takeaway is, make yourself available for 5 minutes, maybe even an hour, to those who want to speak to you or trying to get to know you, and you could learn a lot in return.
Yeah, thank you. There's actually a follow-up question based on the diversity and inclusion question that I want to shoot out to the panel, which is not just thinking about race and ethnic diversity, but also financial and socioeconomic diversity. So just curious how you as leaders are taking that into account in your work as well. I don't know who wants to take a stab at this. Go ahead and unmute yourself and share with us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can speak to the way that BRYTE has approached this. So one thing that we do is we look really hard to find funding in order to pay coordinators, because what that allows is anyone to take the position as opposed to someone having to decide whether they have to actually work a campus job, and so they can't spend the time working as a leader in BRYTE. And so this is BRYTE started over 10 years ago, and we've slowly managed to integrate that into BRYTE's leadership, and it's made a really big difference.
Thanks, Natalie. Melissa, I know you want to weigh in on this too.
Yeah, definitely. So jumping off of what Natalie said, I think a lot of the opportunities that Brown provides in terms of doing service work, especially in the service work industry, a lot of it is underappreciated and undervalued. And so one of the incredible things has been just a big push from student organizations that do service work on getting off-campus federal work study. So making sure that all of the service work that we're to do gets paid, because we know that the unpaid work is really financially inaccessible. And then in terms of bigger scale things, there's also the of committees on campus that deal with budgeting and getting to talk with admin, like the provost Locke or other budgeting officers. Barbara Chernow is another great female leader example of this. But for example, through the work that students have done on the University Resource Committee, which is in charge of budget allocation each year, we've been able to start paying a lot more student laborers. For example, tour guides are now paid. And so there's a lot of opportunity in student advocacy work to make sure that students have access financially to also being able to create social impact, because I know a lot of the work that we're doing with creating social impact goes unpaid, and definitely that is something that I'm very cognizant of, and I think that a lot of students on this campus that are doing diversity, inclusion, equity work are starting to really factor into their decision making and what they are advocating for as well.
Mm. Thank you so much, Natalie and Melissa. That's great. And thanks for the question as well. I'm so glad to hear that there's so many more resources than I remember as a student. I'm a first generation college student. I had a work study job my whole time at Brown. And so in the summers and during the school year, I was working hard. I didn't have awesome internships. I didn't have experience in my field. And now I know there's a whole host of resources that makes that possible for students to really spend their summers getting out there, doing service work, or trying out new experiences. And it's because of student advocates and the resources and awareness that student leaders like you have brought to that issue. So thanks so much for your work on that. Turning back to the WLP program, I want to ask about your experience, more about your experience with your mentoring relationship. Natalie, I wanted to ask you to share an anecdote about how your mentoring relationship has impacted your leadership.
Yeah, sure. So I, like many of us, met my mentor in the fall, Ashley Antler, and we first met at a cafe, had a wonderful conversation, and then talked some more at the Launchpad event, or at the kickoff event. But part of, sitting down at a cafe wearing more formal clothing, it lent a slight formal air to the conversation. But in the course of our conversation, we learned that we both like to run. And so we made plans to run together the next day. And lo and behold, Ashley showed up at my house the next morning, and my housemate Lucia ended up joining us. We went for a really long run. And what I realized was, by changing the context of our conversation, by running, we were able to kind of break through that formal edge and just speak very informally and casually and get to know each other really deeply, which was wonderful. And it was also really cool to have my friend there, because she was able to ask for advice, and I was able to learn from Ashley's answers, but also see what it looked like to be a mentor.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. I think sometimes we think that a mentoring relationship is all about professional work and our careers, but it's just a great reminder that this program is about all of it. Life after Brown, where you're moving, how you think about community, relationships, self-care, balance. These are all things that we talk about as mentors and mentees, and really facilitate learning, not just for the mentees, but for the mentors as well. There's so much that we can learn from all of you. And also just in the process of putting together, telling you stories from my life or lessons that I've learned helps me to crystallize them for myself. And so that's something that I've really gotten out of the program. So as we wrap up this formal portion of the Q&A, and then we're going to open it up for questions in a moment, I want to ask each of you to offer a word of advice for future mentors and mentees. And I'm going to start with Savannah.
Yeah, sure. So the one piece of advice that I constantly find myself sharing with my younger peers is to not be afraid to utilize your professors as a resource and to network with them. Oftentimes they're in the career or have the career experience that you might want to, try out for yourself someday. And in my experience, I've only ever had extremely positive results from utilizing my professors like that, reaching out to them by office hours, by email, pursuing those extra meetings. I've gotten hired, I've gotten offered research opportunities and a lot of academic and emotional support from them. So if those other outside support networks aren't quite what you need, those are a really, really excellent resource.
Yeah, again, that resourcefulness. I had such a great conversation with a few of the mentees at the kickoff event this year about being shy about asking for help because it seems like we don't know what we're doing, or it's seems like a weakness. But actually, it's a strength, isn't it, Savannah, to reach out, to ask for that support, the guidance, the opportunities to show up to those conversations. Great. Thanks, Savannah. Kaitlyn, what would your advice be for future mentors and mentees?
Yeah, I think to echo Savannah's note about networking, definitely take advantage of the resources. And I think there are so many people at Brown who are extremely inspiring and passionate that, everybody here is extremely collaborative and wants you to succeed and so you grow. And in terms of like professors, for example, being an undergraduate, they seem very intimidating, accomplished, and knowledgeable. But I think going to them during office hours and speaking to professors and TAs, I've definitely learned more from them in like 15 minutes of talking than me studying on my own or trying to learn the material on my own for like a few hours. And I think definitely professors and even like the Women's Launchpad and other mentors are there to provide guidance and network to get those opportunities. My only wish is that I joined Women's Launchpad as a junior instead of just as a senior to help more advance for planning for career opportunities and life after Brown.
Great. Thank you, Kaitlyn. Melissa, what would your advice be?
Yeah, definitely. I guess also echoing that advice, I would say that a lot of times I think people think there are limitations to the things that they can accomplish as students. But I think I've talked a lot about student advocacy, and I think the reason that I do is because throughout my time at Brown, I've really seen the impact that students can have. And so I think if I could give one piece of advice, it would really to not underestimate the amount that you can accomplish and the impact that you can have, no matter what your positionality may be in terms of the structural hierarchies, since we're students and they're admin, whatnot. And so I think really if you are determined to accomplish something, don't be afraid, echoing what everyone else said, to look at what resources you have available to you. And I think WLP is a really great, I also regret not joining as a junior. And so, there are a lot of resources that you get to where you want, and never discount yourself or the impact that you can have.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. Isabella, what would you say is your advice?
Yeah, so kind of echoing on what was already said, I really think that, you shouldn't be afraid to ask for something you want or need, whether it is help with a project in class, a letter recommendation for a position, a regrade, a promotion, you name it. I think as women, sometimes we don't say what we want, and I think that the best thing we can do moving forward is learn to speak up and really vocalize what we need. And so far, Brown, I've had a really successful time doing that.
Amen to that. Natalie, how about you? What's your advice?
I would say to really appreciate and not undervalue what we can learn from our friends. And I say this because there have been so many times I've kicked myself for staying up till, 2:30 talking instead of studying. And yet what I, as a senior reflecting on my time, when I think back to the most the moments where I've learned the most, it really is conversation with friends, both hearing them speak to what they're passionate about, what they're learning about in their classes, but also their mindsets. What I spoke about earlier about being in the moment is something I've learned from a friend, and then learning from experiences that they've had. And so, yeah, and continuing to reach out to friends, even if there's been time that's passed since you last saw them and talked to them.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for all of you for that advice. So we're going to open it up now for questions from everyone, and I'm going to turn it back to Johanna to bring us through that.
Thank you so much, Carole Ann, and thank you, Natalie and Melissa and Kaitlyn, Savannah, Isabella. This has just been so wonderful to share this space with you and to celebrate you, hear your journeys, hear about your successes, hear how Launchpad and Brown have impacted you. Thank you. Thank you for all the energy and wisdom that you've shared with us tonight. We have a couple of questions that have come through. The first one I want to ask is, what are your academic/career concerns as a result of COVID-19 disruptions, and how would you like alumni to help? Let's see if I can, Natalie, do you feel comfortable answering that question?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say I can speak to my personal situation and more broadly. I'm going to be a Venture for America fellow after I graduate. So VFA is a 2-year entrepreneurship fellowship for recent grads to work at a startup in an emerging city. So a city like Detroit as opposed to New York or San Francisco. And VFA was actually started by Brown alum Andrew Yang. And so startups have been definitely hit hard by the context of COVID-19. And so just thinking about jobs, one thing could be if alumni really broadcasted jobs that they knew of, whether that was within their own field or company, or stuff that they had heard from friends or colleagues, and maybe share that with their networks of mentees, and especially startup jobs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much for mentioning that. And for anybody on the call that isn't aware, those jobs, those internships can all be posted on Brown Connect. So jobs can be posted on Handshake and internships can be posted on Brown Connect. If anybody wants to talk to me about that, feel free to email WLP@brown.edu and I'll help you. Isabella, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think that this is a great time as students or people who are looking to get a job to network. I think that a lot of people may have some extra time on their hands if they're not first responders, and this would be a great opportunity to reach out to them, to maybe ask them a few questions over email or phone, just to build a relationship, learn more about what they do, what their field is, and then hopefully kind of build a relationship that will potentially lead to a job or an opportunity in the near future once this is all over. And my advice to those who are currently in positions or working for companies that are hiring or will be hiring soon or are alumni of Brown would be, if you have some time, respond to those emails from students. Having been, or being a student who sent a lot of those emails, it really, really does go a long way when you get a nice reply and get to speak to someone and learn about a field, an industry, a specific position, and it can be super informative to someone who has never entered a field before.
It's important. It's so important. Thank you. Savannah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of us during this pandemic are really concerned about what this means for our future job prospects. I'm sure I'm not speaking for myself, and I know for a fact there's a lot of students in this position, but these jobs that we had secured this summer were pretty crucial for our resumes moving forward towards higher education. So I'm not quite sure. I'm still really wrestling with what I can do in the event that I cannot leave my home state to go work in the lab that I plan on working with this summer. I don't necessarily know what can be done. I keep hearing things like higher education admissions committees are going to, obviously be aware of the COVID-19 situation and how that might affect students, but I'm really hesitant to put my confidence in that just yet. So I don't know. It's this time has been filled with a lot of questions and concern and doubt for me. So I'm sorry if that was a nebulous answer, but I'm still really trying to navigate my actions through this as well.
No, I think that's fair. And, we don't always have an answer for everything. And, sometimes we need to use the time to really think about our priorities, strengthen our toolkits, and just get really focused on what we are doing for ourselves and our wellness. That being said, I know I've mentioned it to you before, but if you want to take me up for Launchpad office hours, I'd be happy to chat through this with you and help you navigate your next step.
Thanks.
The next question that comes through, I will, since I guess I asked Natalie, Isabella, and Savannah the first one, I will now have Melissa, Kaitlyn, and Carole answer the next one. So starting with Melissa, if you can tell us, how does our new virtual reality, how can it be a positive time during this uncertainty as students, as alumni, as women? Melissa, what are your thoughts? What's the positive? What's the silver lining?
Definitely. So I know it's really hard during this time to find a silver lining, and I know that a lot of times that silver lining also comes with a degree of privilege. So I want to be cognizant of that while I answer this question. But I think there are, like people mentioned, there are opportunities for us to during this time. I think, for example, in the past, I've always really strayed away from using the Brown Connect network because it feels like you're just shouting in a void when you reach out to alum. But that's something that I've been doing as I look to my next step. And I actually just had a phone call recently with a Brown alum who was my boss 2 summers ago about job opportunities and what he thinks of a hiring freeze, and he was able to connect me with someone. And that was definitely something I don't usually and was pretty uncomfortable doing. So I think that there are ways that where maybe you're not you're in your growth zone and you don't have to stray so far as to you're very, very uncomfortable with. But I think there are definitely silver lining. There's also, because of this shift to online technology and all of the ways that we've implemented platforms for remote and virtual learning, I think there's a lot of ways we can see how that impacts the future of education. I think something that a lot of students, especially the disability communities on our campus, have been pushing for a long time is getting remote access to courses, being more flexible and accommodating for any accommodations you might need. And I think that this highlights our capacity to do that work. And this is definitely something that is very, very positive. And as we rely more and more on technology, as we go into the future, I think this big push that we've all had to do to utilize technology more and more.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. And I think you're absolutely right. Is, when we have this intention around inclusivity, it's really incredible to see how it opens up pathways for accessibility. Thank you for sharing that. How about Kaitlyn?
Yeah, again, just to continue on what Melissa said, this is an extremely disruptive and uncertain time. And if anything, it's even more important for people and communities to get together and brainstorm how we can help one another. Everyone's feeling the impact of this to various extents, and it's hitting a lot of aspects of people's lives. And even if we're not together physically, it's important to know that people are available to meet virtually, which kind of leads into that positive that the virtual, at least having events like this virtually and being able to meet people online allows us to meet more people, being able to schedule things easier. Meetings become a little more time efficient and much more And I think people definitely make themselves more available during this uncertain time when others want to meet. And I think when people do come back together again, whether it be like in person or on campus in the future, we'll be even more grateful with the time that we have with one another and to being in the presence of one another.
I'm smiling. That's such a nice response. Thank you so much. Carole Ann, I'll let you conclude with answering this question, and then you can move into closing remarks. And just before I officially sign off, I'll just share that if anybody wants to continue the conversation or learn more about Launchpad, certainly join us on Twitter, the Brown/WLP, and email us at wlp@brown.edu with any questions. So Carole Ann, you can finish the question and then provide your closing remarks.
Yeah, as a coach, I've been talking with a lot of individuals and a lot of mission-driven leaders during this time. I think a lot of us treat change like something unusual that happens, that we have to get through or just survive, or we say things like, I just can't wait till things go back to normal. And what has become really clear is that change is constant, and so we need to get better at it. And I think that this is a real opportunity to think about how we can be more purposeful and more resilient as individuals navigating change, because this is certainly not the only time that this is going to come up in our lives. And so, so I've been talking with people a lot about tools for that. And one is to really focus on what brings you comfort in the discomfort. So how can you take care of yourself? How can you learn how to manage yourself through change? What are the things that bring you a sense of comfort that, that help you to be more comfortable with that discomfort? Because that is a lifelong tool that you'll come back to again and again. And so it's an opportunity to practice that, to figure out what that means for you, so that when you navigate uncertainty and change in the future, which is the only thing that's certain is that you will navigate uncertainty and change in the future, that you can show up to that with this sense of resilience and purpose in how you move through it. So that's my take on the silver lining right now. And with that, I really want to say thank you to everyone. So this has been such a rich conversation, and a hopeful, like, bright spot in the course of my week and all the Zoom conversations that I've had. It makes me feel all the feels about Brown and this program, Women's Launchpad. I'm so proud to be a part of it. I'm so impressed by the students who are coming through it, and so excited for all of you as you continue on to whatever's next. I hope that it's been inspiring for all of you as well to listen to our panelists, and that you all realize that we're all inspiring role models, and what we bring is so valuable, and this program really celebrates that. Our panelists have shown us how we can influence others, and we can really create a social impact that's meaningful, not just by the work that we do, but by the example that we set, how we're modeling as well. And so if that's one thing that we can take away from this conversation, is to really be those models, be those pioneers, in Savannah's words, to show other women that they can step up and be leaders as well. So I want to say thank you to our panelists, Natalie, Melissa, Savannah, Isabella, and Kaitlyn. Thank you for all the work that you've done and for sharing it with us tonight. I'm so impressed and inspired by all of you. And to thank you to all the alumni who've joined us and for committing your time out of your busy lives to be a part of this program and to support the next generations of Brown women by being here. To the women of 2021 and 2022 here, we hope that you're going to join us in the program. And to the women of 2020, you have been officially launched, and we welcome you to the Alumni Network of amazing women at Brown. We're cheering you on, and we continue to be here for you as a resource. So please continue to turn to this community for support, for guidance, for stories that help you to navigate life after Brown. And thank you again to Johanna and the WLP team for putting this together, for bringing us together as a community. It is such a meaningful community to be a part of. There's so much that goes into it behind the scenes, and it definitely wouldn't be happening without them. So thank you to them, and good night to everyone.